don't really have any weekend anecdotes now that I think about it. Or do I? I thought the story about the whale doing flips in the open ocean was basically as good as it gets. I was proud of myself for that one. How was the picnic? We ended up not taking one. Actually, you know what? So the story, the tweet was inspired by a real story. We were in a different, I don't want to put the business on blast because they were well within their rights to ask this, but we went to a bakery to buy some bread for my wife and my daughter. I was carrying a Coke Zero that I bought at the grocery store because I had the audacity to be thirsty on like a hot July day. I sat down with my daughter at a table while my wife was picking up like 10 buns. And then the worker, maybe the owner, the manager, whatever, like pointed at me and said, "Excuse me, sir, we don't allow outside food and beverages in here." And I was polite. I said, "Okay, no problem." But then I just like opened the door to the bakery and just put the Coke Zero outside, like 6 inches from the door, and then sat back down at the table. And I was like, "Are you happy? Like, I don't know what you think you accomplished with that, but I also don't know what you wanted me to do. Like I'm not gonna come in like it's a coffee shop basically. I'm drinking a Coke Zero. I'm not gonna be like, oh, I can't drink a Coke Zero in here. Let me get a fucking oat milk frappuccino, fucking Earl Grey London Fog with a Nutella cookie. Like that's not what I want. If you sold Coke Zero, then I wouldn't bring in a Coke Zero. I would have said, hey, I'm not gonna get one here because we're gonna go to the cafe and I'll buy a Coke Zero there. It's just weird. So I know, like I was kind of like looking at her like, what do you want from me? Now my Coke Zero is sitting outside and I'm trying to make sure that like, you know, nobody thinks it's trash so they don't like pick it up and throw it in the trash and go, some guy littered. And then, you know, they go, it was that white guy inside of the Korean bakery. Get him. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wait. I'm going to drink, it's not trash. I'm going to drink it. It's just like for my own safety, I was trying to babysit the Coke Zero. Yeah, as soon as I left, I went and I picked it up and drank it. Like again, I get that it's like the rule just doesn't make sense to me. You got to support the bakery, bro. My wife bought like $18 worth of fucking buns that they probably just took from a Cisco truck or something like that. The size of the shop. She's not baking all that shit there. There's no way they got like 3 employees. They're not baking like 17 different varieties of individual custard-filled buns and shit like that. I'm telling you, there's a Gordon's Food Services truck that pulls up and you take the shit off the back and then you go, ooh, no outside food or drink. Your whole fucking store is outside food and drink. If I can't bring in a Coke Zero, even though you don't sell Coke Zero, make it make sense. But anyway, I have to go back anyway because my kid really likes the buns from there. And so does my wife. So I'm just saying they're well within their rules. Or they're well within their rights. I just, like, I don't know. I disagree with it. It seems a little petty to me, but what do I know? If they start selling Coke Zero, I would happily purchase it at their establishment, though. It's a food safety licensing thing. Can't drink a Coke Zero inside of a cafe in case I get food poisoning in 2 years. I think it was the custard bun my wife bought from the Korea bakery. They don't know what you're bringing inside? Good. It's none of their business, man. I don't get it. They don't know what's in my backpack either, or in my pockets. Like, why complicate things? I'm just here to get some damn bread. We don't need to know each other that well. I'll give you some money and you give me some bread. It's that easy. I think it's crazy, dude. I don't know why I thought business owners are always like, oh, I'm so busy. Then they love doing shit like that doesn't matter at all. So I don't know. I guess I'm just asking for somebody to explain it to me because clearly I don't understand it myself. But I guess bringing in a Coke Zero to a bakery that sells coffee is like, I basically put their business rate in my sights and said, I'm taking this place out. Hey guys, just so you know, put down your hot coffees. There's a beverage on the scene called Coke Zero. It's got 0 fucking calories in it. It tastes delicious and sweet and nothing like what you're drinking at all right now. But just in case you weren't aware, just in case you came to a coffee shop because you thought it was the only liquid that is drinkable on planet Earth, there's another liquid. It's Coke Zero. Instead of coming to this coffee shop where there's like nobody here and no lineup, you could go downstairs to the grocery store, find it in their massive warehouse, walk into the longest line you've ever seen, wait 35 minutes, scan the Coke Zero, walk out and drink it in the parking lot because you're not allowed to bring it in here. It's just a waste of everyone's time, man. Is really what I'm trying to say. What if someone came into your chat and was talking about Dan or Mouth stream? Bro, it happens like every day. It's annoying. All right, maybe I do get it. All right, yeah, actually, that's a great metaphor. It makes perfect sense. But here's the thing. We got to keep the metaphor consistent. What if that person was talking about Dan and Mouth's chat in my chat? That would annoy me. But then if I was like, hey, can you stop talking about other streams during my stream? They would say something like, hey, my wife just bought 5 gifted subscriptions here. I would say, carry on, sir, my apologies. Actually more like someone spamming another channel's emote in your chat. All right, I don't really know how to feel, but it's getting very complicated. All I know is I wasn't really offended. I was more like, I guess the way I would say it is I was surprised that was the battle she wanted to take with a customer. But that's okay. That's her business, not mine. Like in a literal sense, it's her business. Just admit you're wrong. Brother, I brought a Coke into a cafe. My personal sense, and this is, I'm not saying that you have to be in the same boat, okay? But this is like going to shop for socks at Old Navy, and they're like, hang on. Your ass is wearing H&M clothes in here? Wait a minute, don't you know I'm trying to run an Old Navy? People might see the clothes that you wore into the Old Navy and be like, I want those. Where are they? And I'd have to be like, oh, they're at another store. And then they would leave the Old Navy and they would go to an H&M, and then I wouldn't be able to feed my kids. The thing that's also crazy is that after this is true, but after we went to the bakery, we bought the bread, we took the bread to a restaurant in the same plaza and just had our kid eat the bread while my wife and I ate the food from the restaurant. Because she doesn't like any of the stuff on the Korean restaurant menu because she's 2.5 years old. And it's all really spicy. And the restaurant is A-okay with it. Well, that's a different story. They have to be nice to you because they're getting a tip. Well, there's another, hey, great, thanks for bringing it up. Because at the bakery, after my wife picked up all the buns, they had the audacity on the machine to ask for a tip. She went into the store, she picked up a tray, she picked up all the buns, she brought the buns to the front. The lady just scanned it a little bit. She said, is that worth 15%? Kate said, no, 10. I respect that she went a little harder on it. I'm just saying. Would I have hit 0? Well, they would have kicked me out of the store if it was just me. So, like, I wouldn't have been able to buy anything. But it would have been worth it for the shop owner because then at least I wouldn't have introduced her clientele to the existence of the beverage known as Coke Zero. You're tipping shops now? It's crazy, man. Like, we don't need to go down this road again, but here we go going down this road again. The tip culture has gone far enough that it's going to swing back in the other direction and people are going to stop tipping at places where they should be tipping. Subway's going to ruin it for a nice mom and pop restaurant. Would you tip your dentist? At this point, I think it's hard to argue against tipping anybody in society because we're tipping for everything. As soon as we started tipping for takeout, which I did gleefully because it made me feel morally superior to people who didn't, all of a sudden, you get yourself on a slippery slope. Well, I'm like, well, first you're paying people a little extra to bring a plate to your table, refill your water glass. And you're like, okay, if that's the norm that I was born into, so be it. Then all of a sudden, you go to the takeout restaurant, or you pick up your takeout from the restaurant, and you're like, well, they didn't bring me any food, but they still were doing this stuff in the kitchen, so I'm still going to tip, but like a little bit less. Then you go to like a coffee shop, and you're like, I'll have a drip coffee, and they're just handing it to me, which is the same thing that they did on the takeout order, so how could I have like some cognitive resonance if I don't tip at the coffee shop, but I tip at the takeout? And then all of a sudden you're in Subway and you're like, I've never seen Subway ask for a tip before, but they took my sandwich from the start of his life to where it's going to be in my belly. So how can if someone pouring me a drip coffee gets a 10% tip, then at Subway, they got to get at least 15. I bought beer on Friday and I'm not, this is the end of the rant, but it was maybe the first time I've ever been in a situation where I just got asked to tip at like a store. Like I bought some beer, and then when they flipped the thing around, they were like, you don't have to tip, but would you like to tip? And I said, no. This is just a store. Like, no, it's not that I want your business to fail, but it's just, it's solved. If you need to make more money, like, raise your prices. Don't just, like, if you're a restaurant, I understand, like, the worker need, because of the fucked up, like, minimum wage for serving staff. You need to have some, well, the way it's set up right now, you need to have a little buffer, okay? But like a store where the owner is like, hey, we could just ask people to pay 10% more just out of the goodness of their heart. No, I resent the request, quite frankly. In BC, there's no server minimum wage. They just make minimum wage. That's fair. But in Vancouver, you still need a tip. If you're at like a restaurant, you still got a tip. Because that's not, they're driving there from Langley or something. You gotta give them a little something. Like a thanks for the effort. I had to tell my boss to turn off our tip screen because we're a sneaker store. Based employee, I appreciate that, okay? It's not that I'm anti-tip. I think that there's a conflation happening. That people who don't like the out-of-control tip culture are anti-tip. I'm not the most generous person in the world, okay? My relative generosity is now taken advantage of, and nothing makes the devil shudder like a nice guy losing his cool, okay? I used to tip, starting in adulthood, I used to tip 15%. All of it, 15% was normal in 2005. All of a sudden, if you tip 15%, you're an asshole, okay? I became a 20% guy. I tipped on takeout. I tipped on drip coffee, okay? Then COVID happened, everything shut down, things started to pick up, the restaurant business was getting its ass kicked. I said, we're tipping even more. I'm gonna be a nice guy, I'm gonna help my local community. Tip 25 maybe. Then all of a sudden people were like, 25 is not enough. If your bill's really small, it still requires the same amount of paper bags getting stapled in it. So if you got a $10 order, you should tip $5 on a $10 order. And I started to go, wait a minute. And then all of a sudden you're doing the self-checkout and they're like, do you wanna add a 10% tip? And you're like, well, I'm the one doing the work, man. Somebody made the product, canned it, put it on a truck, paid somebody to drive the truck to your business. The dude on the truck offloaded it, put it in the freezer. I picked it up out of the freezer. I brought it to the cash register. I scanned it, and now you want me to tip? Tip who? The building? They should tip me. Exactly. The world made me anti-tip. I was never an anti-tip guy. I always thought it was a little cringe to just be like, we should change society. I was like, no, we should just exist within the system that's always been there. Never dream of anything greater. But now, that's what you did, North America. You made my ass European. Are you happy? Streaming's basically tip-based. It's true, but the minimum wage is 0. So you should probably tip like, I don't know, like 1 billion% or something. Something like that. Something reasonable. That's still 0? Sorry, I meant infinity +1. I meant +1, then times infinity.